Emma loved spending her weekends at Grandma Rose's house. Grandma Rose lived in a cozy little cottage at the edge of a lush green forest. The house was filled with the scent of fresh flowers, warm cookies, and a touch of magic, or at least, that's how Emma felt. One rainy Saturday, Emma was curled up on the soft, worn-out couch in the living room, flipping through an old picture book. The sound of raindrops tapping against the window made the room feel even cozier. Grandma Rose was in the kitchen, humming a tune as she kneaded dough for bread. "Grandma," Emma said, peeking into the kitchen, "what's your favorite recipe?" Grandma Rose paused for a moment and wiped her flour-covered hands on her apron. Her eyes twinkled. "That's an interesting question, dear," she said. "I do have a favorite, but it's a bit special. It's a recipe I haven't shared with anyone in a long time." Emma's curiosity was piqued. "What is it? Can you tell me?" Grandma Rose smiled mysteriously. "It's not just any recipe, it's a family secret. My grandmother gave it to me when I was your age." Emma's eyes widened. "Does that mean you'll give it to me someday?" "Maybe," Grandma said with a wink. "But first, you'll have to prove you're ready to learn it. You see, this recipe isn't written down in any cookbook. It's hidden." "Hidden?" Emma repeated, her voice full of excitement. "Where?" Grandma Rose nodded toward the attic. "Up there," she said. "It's in a special box that's been passed down for generations." Emma couldn't believe it. A secret recipe hidden in the attic? It sounded like the beginning of a grand adventure. "Can I see the box, Grandma?" Grandma Rose hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but you must be very careful with it. Let's go together." The attic was dusty and dimly lit, with beams of sunlight sneaking through small cracks in the wooden roof. Grandma Rose led Emma to an old wooden chest in the corner of the room. She opened it carefully and took out a small, ornate box. The box was made of polished wood, decorated with carved flowers and a delicate golden latch. It looked like something out of a fairy tale. "This," Grandma said, "is where the secret recipe is kept." Emma's heart raced as Grandma opened the box. Inside, there was a yellowed piece of paper with elegant handwriting. But before Emma could read it, Grandma Rose closed the lid. "Not yet," she said with a smile. "First, you need to show me you're ready. Tomorrow, we'll bake together, and I'll teach you the basics. If you do well, I'll let you try the secret recipe." Emma nodded eagerly. She couldn't wait to begin. The next morning, the sun peeked through the clouds, and the rain was gone. The cottage smelled of fresh herbs and lavender, a scent that always made Emma feel at home. Grandma Rose had already set the kitchen table with bowls, spoons, and measuring cups when Emma came downstairs, still in her pajamas. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Grandma Rose said, tying her apron. "Are you ready for your first baking lesson?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, Grandma." "All right," Grandma began. "Before we even touch the secret recipe, you need to learn the basics of baking. Today, we'll make something simple but delicious, chocolate chip cookies." Emma clapped her hands. "I love cookies." Grandma handed Emma a recipe card. "This is what we'll follow for now. Baking requires patience, precision, and love. Every step matters." Emma read the ingredients: flour, sugar, butter, eggs, chocolate chips, and a few other things. Grandma helped her measure each ingredient carefully, explaining why the amounts had to be just right. "You see, Emma," Grandma said as they sifted the flour, "baking is like a little science experiment. The flour makes the cookies soft, the butter gives them flavor, and the sugar adds sweetness. But too much or too little of anything, and the cookies won't turn out right." Emma listened closely, taking mental notes. She cracked an egg into the mixing bowl and stirred the dough until her arm felt tired. "Good job," Grandma said, inspecting the dough. "Now for the fun part, adding the chocolate chips." Emma poured a generous handful of chocolate chips into the bowl. She couldn't resist sneaking a few into her mouth. They're so good," Grandma laughed. "That's the perk of being the baker, you get to taste along the way." But don't eat too much, or there won't be any left for the cookies. They spooned the dough onto a baking sheet, shaping it into small mounds. Emma watched as Grandma slid the tray into the oven. The warm, sweet smell of cookies soon filled the kitchen, making Emma's mouth water. While we wait, Grandma said, "Let me tell you a story about the secret recipe." Emma's ears perked up. A story? What kind of story? Grandma Rose leaned against the counter, her eyes sparkling with nostalgia. When I was your age, I was just as curious as you about the secret recipe. My grandmother, who we called Nana May, told me it had been in our family for over 100 years. She said it was no ordinary recipe, it brought people together. Brought people together? Emma asked, tilting her head. Yes, Grandma said. Whenever Nana May made it, neighbors, friends, and even strangers would gather around to share the food and stories. She believed the recipe had a special magic, a magic that made everyone feel happy and connected. Emma's imagination ran wild. A magical recipe that brought people together? It sounded like a treasure more valuable than gold. Just then, the timer beeped, signaling that the cookies were ready. Grandma pulled the tray out of the oven, and the golden brown cookies looked perfect. Here's the most important part, Grandma said, handing Emma a cookie. Always taste what you make. Emma took a bite, and her face lit up. They're amazing, Grandma, Grandma smiled. You did a wonderful job, Emma. I think you're ready for the next step. Tomorrow, we'll take a closer look at the secret recipe. Emma could hardly wait. She went to bed that night dreaming of the magical recipe and the stories it would tell. The following morning, Emma woke up earlier than usual. She dressed quickly and hurried downstairs, eager to begin the day. Grandma Rose was already in the kitchen, arranging bowls and utensils on the counter. Good morning, Emma, Grandma said with a smile. Today's the day you learn about the secret recipe. Emma could hardly contain her excitement. What do we need to do first, Grandma? First, Grandma said, we'll take another look at the recipe in the special box. But remember, this is more than just cooking, it's about understanding the meaning behind the recipe. Grandma led Emma to the attic again. The wooden box sat on the same chest, its carved flowers catching the morning light. Grandma opened the lid and carefully unfolded the yellowed piece of paper. The recipe was written in elegant cursive, and Emma read the title aloud. Nana May's Special Friendship Pie. Friendship pie? Emma asked, her voice filled with curiosity. Yes, Grandma said, her expression thoughtful. It's a recipe for a pie, but it's also a recipe for bringing people together. Each ingredient represents something important. Grandma handed Emma the paper, and they read the list of ingredients together. 2 cups of kindness, 1 cup of patience, a sprinkle of laughter, a pinch of forgiveness, a generous helping of love. But Grandma, Emma said, puzzled, how do you measure things like kindness and love? Grandma chuckled. That's the magic of this recipe, Emma. These ingredients aren't things you can buy at the store. They're things you bring from your heart. Every time you make the pie, you think about the people you're making it for and what they mean to you. The more care you put into it, the better it tastes. Emma's eyes widened. That's amazing, Grandma. Let's make it right now. Not so fast, Grandma said with a twinkle in her eye. We still need the regular ingredients to make the pie. Let's go to the market and pick them up. The market in Willow Creek was bustling with activity. Emma and Grandma walked through the rows of stalls, selecting fresh apples, a bag of flour, and a jar of honey. Along the way, Grandma greeted the other villagers with warmth. Hello, Rose, called Mr. Baker, who owned the bread stall. Who's your helper today? This is my granddaughter, Emma, Grandma said proudly. We're making something very special today. Emma beamed, feeling important. She noticed how kind Grandma was to everyone, always asking about their families and offering a friendly smile. Is this part of the recipe too? Emma asked as they walked home. Grandma nodded. Kindness isn't just an ingredient, Emma, it's how you bring people together. When you share kindness, it spreads, just like the scent of a delicious pie. Back at the cottage, Emma and Grandma began preparing the friendship pie. Grandma showed Emma how to roll the dough, slice the apples, and mix them with honey and cinnamon. As they worked, they talked about the people they cared about. "I think we should invite Mr. Baker for a slice," Emma said. "He's always so nice to us." "That's a wonderful idea," Grandma agreed. "And we can share it with Mrs. Green, who's been feeling a bit lonely lately." Emma felt a warm glow in her chest. She realized that the pie wasn't just about the food, it was about making people feel happy and loved. When the pie was finally ready to go into the oven, Emma helped Grandma slide it onto the middle rack. The sweet, spicy aroma of apples and cinnamon soon filled the kitchen. "It smells magical," Emma said, closing her eyes to savor the scent. Grandma smiled. "That's because it is, Emma. You've put your heart into it, and that makes all the difference." As the pie baked, Emma helped Grandma set the table in the cozy living room. They used Grandma's best plates and arranged them carefully on the wooden table. A small vase of fresh daisies sat in the center, brightening the room. The timer dinged, signaling that the pie was ready. Emma followed Grandma to the kitchen, her excitement bubbling over. Grandma opened the oven, and the golden brown pie looked perfect. The scent of warm apples and cinnamon filled the air, making Emma's stomach rumble. "Careful, it's hot," Grandma said as she placed the pie on the counter to cool. Emma leaned in to get a closer look. "It's the most beautiful pie I've ever seen," Grandma chuckled. "That's because it's made with love, Emma. Now, let's let it cool while we invite a few friends over." Grandma sent Emma to deliver invitations to a few neighbors. She skipped down the lane to Mr. Baker's stall and told him about the pie. His eyes lit up. "I'd be delighted to join you," he said. Next, Emma visited Mrs. Green, who lived in a little house with a garden full of roses. When Emma explained the plan, Mrs. Green smiled warmly. "I haven't had company in weeks." "Thank you, dear. I'll be there." By the time Emma returned home, Grandma had already sliced the pie. "Perfect timing," Grandma said as Emma came through the door. "Our guests should be arriving soon." One by one, the neighbors arrived. Mr. Baker brought a loaf of fresh bread as a gift, and Mrs. Green brought a jar of homemade jam. The little living room was soon filled with laughter and the cheerful hum of conversation. Emma watched as everyone enjoyed their slices of pie. She noticed how Grandma's kind words made Mrs. Green smile and how Mr. Baker shared funny stories that made everyone laugh. The room felt warm and full of joy, just as Grandma had described. "Grandma," Emma whispered, "I think the magic is working." Grandma nodded. "It always does, Emma. When you share something made with love, it brings people together in the best way." After the pie was gone, the guests stayed a little longer, chatting and sharing stories. When it was time to leave, everyone thanked Grandma and Emma for a wonderful afternoon. "That was the best pie I've ever tasted," said Mr. Baker. "It's not just the pie," Mrs. Green added. "It's the kindness you've shared with all of us." Emma felt proud as she waved goodbye to the neighbors. When the house was quiet again, she turned to Grandma. "I think I understand the recipe now," she said. "It's not just about the ingredients, it's about thinking of others and making them feel special." Grandma smiled and hugged Emma tightly. "You've learned the most important part, my dear. That's what makes this recipe so magical." That night, as Emma lay in bed, she thought about the day. She realized that the true magic of the friendship pie wasn't in the apples or the cinnamon. It was in the love and care that went into making it and the joy of sharing it with others. Emma drifted off to sleep with a smile, already dreaming of the next time she and Grandma would bake the special pie. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more such videos.